got great news for you this morning. Over the past 3 years, Dominica has captured the hearts and awards in the Travel Plus Leisure World's Best Awards, solidifying our place among the world's best islands. And we need your help to ensure that the winning streak is maintained for Dominica. But let's backtrack. This is what has been happening so far. In 2022, we claimed the title of number one island in the Caribbean in the Travel Plus Leisure World's Best Awards. In 2023, we held on to our crown, ranking first one more time for a second consecutive year. And in 2024, this year, we climbed to the fifth place among the best islands worldwide, showcasing our charm on the global stage. And we need your help to keep the momentum going because voting begins for next year's awards. And all you have to do is vote. Log on to the website, fill out the form, and we can be winners once more. So log on to www.wba.m-rr.com/home. Again, that web address www.wba.m-rr.com/home and vote for Dominica to win the Travel Plus Leisure World's Best for another year. Good morning, by the way. My name is Monel Alexis, and it's my pleasure to be with you in studio right now for another Talking Tourism program. In studio with me is Mr. Samuel Johnson. We'll be talking about getting to Dominica, all things air access, and we do want you in Dominica for Carnival. By the way, our Carnival season is right across the corner, and we start our calendar from January the 7th. So there's lots happening in Dominica for the Carnival season. We want you here. Where is here? Here is Dominica, the nature island of the Caribbean. Your home, my home, the best place to relax, have a vacation, to work, and to spend your days on planet Earth. Welcome to another program of Talking Tourism right here on DBS Radio. It is always my pleasure to be in your company. Before we bring in Mr. Johnson, I want to tell you of the calendar for this year's Carnival. We have activities again from January 7th all the way to March 5th, 2025. And you need to be here. You need to be part of the experience. On January 7th, we have Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. Thursday 9th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. Saturday 11th, Calypso Eliminations. Tuesday 14th, Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. Thursday 16th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. The 18th of January 2025, that is the opening of Carnival Mas Dominique. On the 21st of January, we have Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. On the 23rd, Reggae on the Boardwalk. On the 25th of January is the Portsmouth Town Carnival. On the 28th, we have Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. On the 30th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. And Miss OECS will be held on Friday, the 31st of January. Moving on to February 2025. On the 4th, Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. On the 6th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. On the 8th, Calypso Quarterfinals. On the 11th, Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. On the 13th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. 14th January, Junior Calypso Bouillon Monarch. Sunday 16th, Carnival Princess Show. On the 18th, Jazz in the City Carnival Edition. On the 20th, Reggae on the Boardwalk. 22nd, Amped. Also on the 22nd, Calypso Semifinals. On the 23rd, there's Wind Down and also Miss Teen Dominica. On the 27th of February, there is Carnival Gopwell, and also the Miss Dominica pageant. On the 28th of February, we have Sunrise. And also on the 28th, there are several activities on the 28th of February. There's Sunrise, Welcome to Paradise, Drift, the Barge Boat Party, and also Rebel. And now for March 2025. On the 1st of March, Brunch D, all-inclusive food and drinks. There's the Calypso Grand Finals on the 1st and also Viva La Carnival. Again, there's free events March 1st, Brunch D, Calypso Grand Finals, and Viva La Carnival. On the 2nd of March, there's Opulence, Original Carnival, Sauce and Punch. Dimash Gra, Dance with the Swinging Stars at Fortune Hotel, and also the Kiddies Carnival. And now for the main event on March 3rd, we have Juve. This is Carnival Monday, March 3rd, Carnival Tuesday, March 4th. For March 3rd, we have Juve. For Juve, we have the Cetra Official Juve Band. There's the Portsmouth Town Carnival Chromos Juve. There's the Pulse Experience Immortals. There's the Asta Events More Powder 6.0, and also the Signal Band Illumination. And for Carnival Monday afternoon, we have the School Band Youth Mass, TK International Mega Monday, Signal Band Luminite, Inland Revenue Clue Bird, Old Mass Band Old Time Sake, Thunderbirds, Traditional Monday, and MFC Mud Mass. That's a new one, MFC Mud Mass. And Carnival Tuesday, we have the Winners Parade, Traditional Parade, Hysteria Mass Costume Band, Fantasy Tribe Costume Band, Pulse Experience Costume Band, Africulture Stilt Walkers Traditional Band, Thunderbirds Costume Band, and the Tewe Vaval ends things on March 5th, 2025. So the calendar is out. If you want details on the calendar of events for Carnival, head over to our Facebook page. That is Dominica Festivals on Facebook. Also on our website, www.dominicafestivals.com. You can get the calendar right there to find out all the details of the Carnival activations. And also, for voting for Dominica, you can also find that information on our Facebook page as well. So head over to Dominica Festivals, get the information, vote for Dominica, and also get yourself ready for Carnival 2025. And it's Christmas season, so Merry Christmas to you. Yes. This morning, we're talking International Airport Development Update and Routes Development Strategy. We want to talk about the role of airlines in Dominica's tourism growth. And who better to have in studio than Mr. Samuel Johnson. Good morning to you, Mr. Johnson. How you doing?
Good. Good morning. Thank you for having me back on your program. Always looking forward to the opportunity to share what's happening insofar as the airport development that is ongoing, that we've all been very eagerly waiting for, and more importantly, the air access that it should bring to help improve the air access. Something, by the way, I think we've been working in parallel with the development of the airport project. So I think a lot of good things happening.
Wonderful. Mr. Johnson, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your role as CEO of the International Airport Development Company?
Sure. So the IADC, for short, is a company developed by the government to provide oversight services on the International Airport Development project. The project, as we all know, is being developed through the developer Montreal Management, MMCE, as it's commonly known, through the contractor CR5. And the project sits in the office of the Prime Minister. So IADC helps provide that oversight and liaises with the various ministries and the contractor and provides advisorial support as well. Doesn't replace any of the ministries, but works in conjunction with them. So helps in that day to day and provides that feedback. And as the CEO of the company is really more as the primary interface with all stakeholders and parties concerned to ensure that we stay on track, and if there are any obstacles and roadblocks and challenges, that there is awareness of all relevant parties so that we can very quickly resolve and move forward and stay on track. And so far, I think if you've been following the groundbreaking ceremony, you would have heard that we're actually ahead of schedule, which is a good thing. But I'm always scared when that statement is made, because all it takes is one climatic event to shock us back. So fingers and toes are crossed that we stay on track and we can deliver within the time that we've committed to.
Wonderful, and congratulations on being in advance in your project. And we will discuss this in detail a little bit later.
Sure.
But let's talk about your inspiration. What inspired you to take on this role, and what has the journey been like thus far?
Yeah. So I I think my reconnection actually home in this deeper level really started after Hurricane Maria. Looking for an opportunity to help out and be engaged. My area of expertise is transportation. I've been in transportation consulting, probably of every imaginable mode of transportation other than pipeline, which you'd have to be in the oil and gas industry to do a lot of work in that space, which I have not been. But every other mode of transportation, I've spent quite a bit of time working, primarily in the U.S. I've done some work also in Ireland and Canada and the U.K. as part of international projects. So this is an opportunity to give back in an area that I'm very passionate about. And as they say, success happens when preparation meets opportunity, and so the opportunity presented itself, and I think we've been relatively successful thus far.
All right, so that's wonderful. So I take it that you're enjoying your job.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is a challenge, as in all things. If anyone undertaking any project in Dominica, you can appreciate there's the logistic challenges and the resourcing challenges that that comes with it, vis-a-vis having a project outside where there is limitless, well, not limitless, but very little concern about resourcing to the degree that we are in Dominica. So that makes it interesting, because I always say if it were not challenging, it would have been done already, right? If it were easy, somebody else would have done it already. So the fact that there are these challenges that we have to overcome and work together to get through makes it interesting. So absolutely yes.
Okay, wonderful. Can you share some highlights from the recent groundbreaking ceremony that took place last weekend, and what does it mean for Dominica's tourism development?
Yeah, so I think the groundbreaking ceremony is a major milestone that we've been working towards. And you heard the Prime Minister's reasoning for having it done at the time that it was, as opposed to having a groundbreaking when we were surrounded by trees and forests in the middle of a location that looked nothing like an airport site. So that milestone, I think, brought everybody together. In the area where the ceremony was held, and I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but the groundbreaking ceremony actually happened on the finished level for the earthworks at the touchdown point of the airport. Yeah, so the orientation of the runway is 1533, and the actual groundbreaking ceremony was at the touchdown point, which is 90+% of the time where aircraft will be landing once complete. So that that signal that we had arrived at that level for that portion of the runway. And then you would have seen the ceremonial paving of the runway. That really is to give an indication as to how much more above the finished earthworks level. So the aggregate and the substructure, the foundation works required for the actual runway. So if you saw the paving, ceremonial paving, it gives a
I saw
little
that.
indication of how much more off the finished surface that we'd have to go for the runway. Because we need to ensure not only that we have sufficient compaction of the earthworks, but also the bearing capability of the runway is such that it could handle the design aircraft being used for the airport, which is the Boeing 777 or the Airbus A350 as the primary design aircraft that we're going after.
What's the carrying capacity of these aircraft?
These aircraft, depending on how it's configured, and different airlines have different configurations, but it could go all the way up to 330 passengers, I think, and a little bit more than that. If you were to go high density single class, you could even push that number higher. But in your typical three-tier passenger classes, you would have like a business, first class, and economy. So that would bring it lower to the 260, 280, 300 range, depending on the aircraft type. Because even with the Boeing 777, you have the 777 200 to some 300. So with all the different nuances, so not all 777s are created equal. Similarly with the A350, you also have different type that are available and under development within the family of A350s.
All right. Well, let me take you back to the highlights from the International Airport groundbreaking ceremony.
So I think the ceremony itself, you got to see one of the things that we wanted to ensure that we had available for folks who made the journey or the trek to the site is for them to be able to see and witness something that resembles the alignment of the runway. So you'd have seen driving to the site, depending on what time you got there, you'd have seen the vast amount of earthworks that had already been undertaken. And if you're familiar with the area, you'd have seen the transformation that has taken thus far in terms of trying to develop that level platform on top of which the runway would sit. The ceremony, I think, also brought together all of the major stakeholders for the project in the execution of the project, as well as beneficiaries of the project thereafter. Stakeholders being your business, your diplomatic corps, your general citizenry, government, and contractors, all involved in the delivery of the project. And I think it was a good milestone for everyone to know that, well, yes, we're at the cusp of moving this forward. Having said that, however, all that you've seen so far, we're just about, I think, 20% of the actual
20% complete
of the actual project. Yeah, so there's still a lot more work that is required. A lot more earthworks also is required, because the filling is one thing. There's the cutting, which is another. And as designed, there'll be significantly more cutting to be done than filling, and that was intentionally so, because you wanted to ensure that you had the surplus cut material so that you could determine what was reusable versus what had to be relocated to some other site. What that has done also is given us the ability to develop some areas within and around the airport that in the future could be used as the area develops, as the amount of aircraft and services to the area develops. So
what does all this mean for Dominica's tourism industry?
I mean, I think more so than Dominica's tourism industry, it's Dominica's economy, because tourism is a vital plank, if you will, in the economies of if you look north and south of us to other islands, and the outsized role that tourism plays to the economy. And you ask yourself, well, what do they have that we don't? You realize we actually have a whole lot more than they do. The only challenge is getting to the destination. Yeah, I've had friends visit from St. Lucia and other islands, Trinidad, and in awe at what is naturally available in Dominica. Not just naturally available, we're in that sweet spot, being big enough so that you can develop and grow, and not spoil the product that you're trying to promote, and small enough that the attractions are still accessible. It's not a trek across several days. Probably our most grueling trek would probably be to the Boyne Inlet, which is 6 hours by hike, and that is coming down.
But the cable car is going to
Yeah.
offset that.
Yeah. So not only do we have the attractions, but they are accessible with a decent hike, which the average visitor or adventure seeker could partake in. So I think and not just me, but if you look at the studies that have been done, not just for this project, but for all the other projects that have been related to development of international airport in Dominica, they've all come back wildly feasible in terms of the impact that it would have on the overall growth and development of the economy in Dominica.
So how do you see the international airport changing the visitor experience and perceptions of Dominica as a tourism destination?
Yeah, and we've seen some of those perceptions changing already. You've run through all the accolades at the start of the show that we've been getting, because even with and we'll talk a bit about it a little bit later on, in parallel to the development of the airport, we have been working close collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism and DASPA on route development, because building the airport without having the airlines lined up ready to go, you'll just have pretty buildings and a nice long runway. It looks awesome, but we need to have flights coming in. So what we've been doing is aggressively going after the airlines to try to get as many to come into Douglas Charles as possible. And you'd have seen the completion of the extension, and we've gotten with American Airlines and now United coming in February of next year. We've started to see, and you being part of the tourism infrastructure, you started to see a different type of visitor, in that a visitor who is seeking a more convenient destination, who is not really into the vagaries of a connection somewhere that might or might not make, or if your flight is delayed, the point-to-point visits we've started seeing with American. I think when we looked at the numbers in 2019, which was one of the banner years for Dominica, the North American market only represented 17% of your stay over visitors, and with the commencement of the American Airlines flight, that went to 32%, right? And a lot of that, you would see visitors that would not otherwise have even had Dominica on their radar, or go through the effort of trying to figure out, well, where do I connect and what flights do I get? We also saw that although people complain about some of the airfares, but if you plan in advance, you have
cheaper.
a lot cheaper than what it used to be. I remember back in the day, you'd have to pay like $1,500 and some astronomical amounts if you're trying to do last-minute bookings, trying to get to Dominica. Now, we're even comparable to flights to our neighboring islands. Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Lucia. I've actually heard St. Lucians tell me that it's sometimes cheaper to fly to Dominica and hop over to St. Lucia, depending on the time of year. And that also highlights another opportunity that exists in that Dominica's geographical location, and I think everybody knows this, is smack in the middle of the Eastern Caribbean. Yeah, so much so we, from our history, you'd have known we were once Leeward Island, and then we became Windward Island because we were right on the cusp of it. And we've seen, even with some of the cargo companies, DHL, for example, would have flights come from San Juan, Puerto Rico, hopping down, and flights from Trinidad hopping up and exchanging parcels in Dominica. So that again speaks to our central location and the opportunity for us to develop more than point to point, but actually hub operations in Dominica where you could connect and catch regional flights. And it is with that thrust that we not only have been focused on going after the international carriers, but also improving your regional connectivity.
Sure.
Yeah. So we've seen a significant lift in terms of the number of seats coming into Dominica, in and out of Dominica by some of our regional players.
Sunrise, we have Liat 2020, there's the Win
Winair.
Air, there's Intercaribbean, there's
Yep.
Caribbean Airlines.
Yep.
And of course, American Airlines, and we welcome United very soon.
Yep.
And Silver Airways as well.
Correct.
I think they will connect from San Juan to Dominica, and they will have some interline connection with agreement with some other agency.
Yeah, and so we've been working very closely with all these airlines, and we've made some significant progress. Sometimes you're in the trenches and you never really step out to look at it. But just this week, I was taking a look at our seat capacity coming into Dominica. I remember being part of a task force after COVID, when we were just reopening after COVID in 2021, thereabout.
Mm-hmm.
And we only had like 572, I think, or between 500 and 600 seats a week into Dominica. Fast forward, and that included at the time because the ferry wasn't running. And when you look at where we are now, on airlines alone, we have, and we will have, by the time you throw in United into the mix, we will have over 3,000 seats a week.
That is good.
Into Dominica.
That's
and
awesome.
then you throw in the ferry into it, and the thing, it just doubles because the seating capacity of the ferry takes it up a notch. The ferry I think sits anywhere between 300 to 400, and there's a new one that had just started, I think, that goes up.
RFS?
Right, that goes up
I
to
think
what,
Express
500?
Diesel would have changed to RFS,
right.
Express Diesel.
Right.
So the capacity would have increased.
And right. So that again, if you were to put that into the mix and assume that all the seats were for Dominica, which it's not, you would have very easily 5,000-6,000 or more seats available. And I know during our festive seasons they put in additional sailings, so that gives us additional connections. Yeah. So we do have the seats. We have been working with very closely with the airlines, and it really is incumbent upon us to make sure everyone is aware that things are gradually getting better and stronger. So we need to avail ourselves of the services. Like Trinidad and Tobago, for example, we never had direct flights to Trinidad.
Caribbean Airlines.
Caribbean Airlines provides us direct service, and we'll be working very closely with Caribbean Airlines, not just for regional, but also in preparation for the new airport on international connections as well. Yeah, and what they think is possible even before the new airport is completed. But that, if I were to stick on Caribbean Airlines for a short while, if you look at the Trinidadian market, a population of 1.5 million. Vis-a-vis some of our neighboring islands. And if you look at where there's an opportunity for significant growth in visitor arrivals, Trinidad is a no-brainer. It accounts for, I think, the single biggest regional visitor market for Antigua, which recently started, St. Lucia as well. So it's really incumbent upon us to tap into that market and promote and ensure that our awareness level is what it should be. Because I know every Trinidadian I've encountered in Dominica have all been in wow of the destination. Not just from the attractions, but also in terms of cultural fit. They say Trini like to party, but apparently party and SEAWO are at different degrees because Dominica takes it to the next level.
Yeah.
And then the overall safety in Dominica, that's a big selling point. In that when they visit, they feel so much relaxed that you can walk out at any time and not have to be looking back.
And that is so true, because a visitor can come to Dominica for Carnival by himself or herself,
Yep.
attend all the events, walk around late at night, and return home
Mm-hmm.
safe and sound.
Yep.
This is Dominica.
And we need to keep it that way. So
Yes.
very quickly, put that in, that that's a key part of the product. So that we all, and they say tourism is everyone's
It's one of our
business.
selling points.
It is our selling points,
Yes.
and we don't want to damage it.
No, we don't.
Yep.
So I know that the International Airport and the Douglas Charles Airport construction development has been operating in tandem.
Yep.
So let's talk a bit about the Douglas Charles Airport.
Yep.
I know that recently, we would have expanded the
Mhm.
runway. We would have grooved the runway of the airport. What does that mean for international travel and for arrival numbers in Dominica?
Big deal, very very big deal. And I mean, in terms of our overall route development strategy, and again working very in tandem with DASPA and the Ministry of Tourism, it's been a two-prong approach when we discuss with the airlines. One, well, we have a new airport that's being developed, and we're starting to prime the pump, right? But also currently we currently have an airport, and what do we need to do to get you in as soon as possible? So how many airlines would have the capability to get into the existing airport as soon as possible? And in as a result of many conversations with many airlines, it's not just a group of us sitting in a room and imagining stuff. It's direct face-to-face conversations with, I think to date we've spoken to at least 25 or probably even 30 different airlines. We got direct feedback and as to what it is their passengers, their operations groups are looking for, and what would make things even more accelerated.
Mm-hmm.
And the extension was as a direct result of conversations held with American Airlines and these other airlines, right, as to what we can do to improve. The new airport will not be complete for another 2-3 years. Do we sit down and just wait on that, or is there anything we can do in the interim? And I think the government was sold on the idea that we should aggressively start right now. And so in that vein, the Douglas Charles Airport has, you've seen, undergo several enhancements from even the first American Airlines flight, the repainting, the upgrading, the landscaping, the addition of the executive lounge.
We'll speak about that in detail shortly.
Okay, the departure lounge has been expanded as well. Even the departure procedures we're taking a closer look at. So before you'd had to do this
The forms
immigration
online.
form, and
We now have ED cards.
right.
Uh-huh.
So all of these, and the intent really is how many process upgrades can we introduce now, so that by the time you get to the new airport, you're just doing a lot more of it instead of having too much disruption, in that you're trying to be in a new location, in a new environment with new processes.
Start now.
Right? So best we start now and we debug and we
Transition.
Right. And so all of these have been going on. You mentioned the extension and the grooving, and most people are probably wondering what are you talking about, the grooving. And what the grooving is, and we were able to make contact with probably one of the patent holders for trapezoidal grooves. To get a little bit technical, there are different types of grooves, and the grooves are really intended to ensure that the weather and wet runways can be managed so that it doesn't impact the overall reliability of your flights. All right, we've had numerous incidents where you'd had the American Airlines flight circle around and try to land and try to come in, and either the winds were not right, or the cloud cover in the mountains were too low, so they couldn't land, so they had to go back to another destination, wait, and then come back. We were able, in working closely with them, to not only work on the grooving, which helps the runway shed water almost immediately, and actually the groove runway performance a wet groove runway is almost identical to a dry non-groove runway, right? So in terms of the pilot's confidence to drop down, and then why do you care if the runway is wet or dry? It's just like driving on a wet road.
Skid.
Your ability, your potential of skidding increases, right? So you want to ensure that there is a shedding of as much water as possible to eliminate hydroplaning, which is basically water building up under your tires and you skidding. And then what the extension does, it also enables landing from the sea because you have more runway going towards the sea. What a lot of people don't realize though, although the winds from Douglas Charles are typically from the sea, which is one of the challenges that airlines have, but you also have over a 70-foot drop from the runway's point in by the mountain to the sea. So you technically, although the gradient is about like 1.5%, it so you are technically going uphill when you're landing from the sea. So again, to help slow down the aircraft, which is also a bonus when you're taking off to the sea because you're going downhill, right?
Okay.
And into the wind. So all of these factors were looked at and taken into consideration in terms of determining the type of aircraft that could operate into Douglas Charles.
So ideally, the surface for the landing surface should not be flat. There should have some elevation points.
Yeah. So yes and no. The if you can, and most people think that runways are perfectly flat, but almost never. If you think of the length of a typical runway, you're talking about almost 3 kilometers. So to get that perfectly flat is not typically possible. But the standards from the ICAO do make allowances for like different gradients, right? So you have some that are sloping down, you have some that are like a bowl. You have when you sort of compress it, you have some that are sloping up. All dependent on the terrain that you're working with. Yeah.
Let's talk more about Douglas Charles Airport. I know the executive lounge has been upgraded. Talk about that.
Yep. So the first of all, we didn't have an executive lounge. Then we had an executive lounge, and then we upgraded the services for the executive lounge. Again, one of the services that will be included in the new airport is what I think would be a world-class executive lounge experience, and we can talk about that separately at some other time. But we wanted to ensure that we were able to provide that elevated level of service to passengers now, and we were looking for partners we could work with to be able to do that, and so the Global Lounge Network, who now operates the executive lounge, not only brings the know-how and expertise for lounge operations because they run several lounges, I think over 40 or 50 lounges over the world, but they are also plugged into the Priority Pass network, which has over like 1,200, 1,200 lounges, and what that does, it brings their customer base as well
to Dominica,
right, to Dominica and to the lounge. Because now, through Global Lounge Network, we are now part of the Priority Pass Access Lounges, of which I know St. Lucia in Uranara, Barbados, Antigua, Trinidad, I think either Martinique, Guadeloupe. They have 2 in San Juan. These are a family of lounges that passengers desiring the services can access, and Dominica is now part of that group of airports which is able to offer the services. And again, do we wait until the new airport is completed, or do we? And everyone who tells me, why are we doing all of this now? My question is very simple: would you have waited for American Airlines to start in 2027, or do you like getting on the flight now? And the same is true for your visitors. Similarly with United, when we met with them and we spoke with them, the grooving actually was was a big part of their decision making for United, because they were looking at coming with a larger aircraft and starting up with a once weekly service. So they needed to ensure that the reliability of the route was such that that one flight would not have to be diverted or cancelled because of a wet runway. And they will be coming with by far the single largest commercial scheduled flight to Dominica with a
Good stuff.
Boeing 737 flying directly out of the New York area. And I've heard some feedback. Well, New York is not New York, but it for those who have some concerns in the New York area. It's the same port authority. Like we have DASPA in charge of Douglas Charles, the seaport, and Caneville in New York. There's PANG, Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which is responsible for Newark, LaGuardia, and JFK. And actually, if you're traveling from Manhattan, Newark is actually closer than LaGuardia and JFK. But notwithstanding, we are also talking to other carriers because the market in the Northeast and the tri-state area is huge, and we're very optimistic that there is significant capacity that we could get out of that source market. So we are very optimistic for the United flight. So if you have not booked your flight as yet, you should do it. One of the things I want to point out though with the United flight is, although it is a once weekly direct flight, one of the first things we did when we were talking to them was to ensure that the connections with interlines that they had in place were working. So we were able to
Good.
work with them to fix the interline with Silver and also with Winair. So it's now possible that you could take the direct down and take Winair back up through St. Martin or Silver through San Juan, and with your baggage checked direct in both instances. You won't have to get out and check in.
And know more about lost baggages.
Right. Well,
Hopefully.
the tracking is a little bit
Hopefully.
better. Is a little bit better. So even with the direct flight, it complements now, and they United were able to see what the connected traffic was through Silver and United, and they have a very good feeling about the direct service. And if it does very well, there is the ability to go to 2 times weekly in short order. So it's incumbent on us to make as much noise as possible to ensure that the weekly is filled. And we've looked at the early bookings, and it's starting to look good, and that's without any major marketing push as yet. We've been talking to United of partnering opportunities. But one of the things that we've seen, even if American as well, is that when they start initially, there's a lot of traffic coming down, but not as much going up. And the route, when it's assessed, it's assessed in both directions. Yeah, so there are still good deals for locals looking to travel to the US as well. Yeah, so we should look out for that. And it's starting February 15th, every Saturday. And it goes, I think, until in August. There's a break, and then starts back again in October, in time for the Creole Festival.
And it's important that we get ourselves ready for these international flights or airlines. And getting ready means we have the right products and services to offer people. We package them correctly and we market. Marketing, yes, there's Discover Dominica Authority, yes, there's the government, but you businesses, you need to market your products and services too, to attract people to Dominica to buy into your product and services.
Yeah, and that's one thing actually I've noticed. Like a lot of the local hotels have already started promoting the flights, because so I know I've seen Rosalie Bay, Jungle Bay, Fort Young, Intercontinental. They've all been out there on social media, and we are looking to potentially do even more. Yeah, we've been talking to United about that and how we can even get to some packages.
Because it's one thing to have the flight, and the other one is to have the product properly packaged to attract the people
Yeah,
to the destination. So we need to ensure that we do our jobs well enough to
absolutely.
attract the persons to keep coming, so we don't have an issue with numbers coming in and nothing going back out.
Yeah, but I'm very optimistic that we should be able to fill
Me too,
124
me too.
seats once a week.
I'm optimistic myself. Now, airport being constructed, jobs should be available. Let's talk job opportunities, training for opportunities that will arise once the international airport is complete, and also what will happen to Douglas Charles once the international airport is completely operational.
Yeah, so to answer your last question first about Douglas Charles, I know there's been several recommendations made and several proposals put forward, but that is a decision that resides with the government, and I know they've been looking at everything um, from aviation school to entertainment to racing, just a few to name a few that have been put forward. But ultimately, that decision would be made by the government at the appropriate time. We still have a few years to figure it out. In terms of the jobs and employment and all of that, we have been and we have identified actually several roles that would be required. And well, fortunate for us, we do have an international airport. We might not call it an international, but Douglas Charles is an international airport with direct flights to other countries and now, well, to mainland US. So we have a sense as to what are some of the roles that would be required. The question becomes one of quantity. How much more will we be required, and what new services will be added? So with the added capacity and complexity of the aircraft that will be coming to the new airport, I think there is opportunities as well for like aircraft mechanic and maintenance personnel. With the size of the airport, there'll be additional maintenance crews and service providers required to operate within the new airport. We've made significant allowance for retail space, so there will also be opportunities for that as well, ranging from duty free to your food and beverage type services and other retail services. So all of that, don't just think of air traffic control and security and customs immigration, but also all the ancillary services that would form part of the passenger experience, both on arrival and on departure. And then with the executive lounge that we've started at Douglas Charles, we would already have a few years under our belt to provide even a more expanded service offering in that area. But we've identified quite a few roles that we can start putting things in motion for employment once the airport is completed. But even before the airport is completed, you do have opportunities even in the development of the project. So one of the questions I've been asked several times as well: what is the economic impact of the project happening in Dominica? And people tend to be thinking of future tense as to when it's complete, which is natural. But even before it started, there was the whole development that took place to relocate residents in the Wesley area. So there were like 6 local contractors involved in the development of the Joe Burton area. So that was even before we started mobilization and construction works in earnest. The construction that's going on right now employs, I think, anywhere from 200 to 300 locals in the actual construction, and that is expected to continue to rise. We've seen the engagement of the local truckers, and there'll be more opportunity in the future. As I said, we're only 20% of the way, and there's going to be a significant amount of works coming in 2025 as we try to push. And then once the construction of the actual buildings commence, there will be another skill set required, right? Because a lot of the work that's going on right now is primarily civil and earthworks for the waterways and the cutting and filling works that's ongoing. But once you get into the actual buildings and facilities, that again will require masons, carpenters, and the like to finish that off.
All right, so guys, get yourselves ready. International Airport is under constructions. More jobs will be available. And of course, we believe in supporting locals and the Dominicans and offering them employment opportunities. And you did mention that Douglas Charles is an international airport. That's a risky statement right there. But I'm assuming you said that because we attract international flights like American Airlines, and we'll be having United Airlines, right?
Yeah, well, and well, not just American and United. If you think in the classical definition of international versus domestic, so like St. Vincent has domestic travel, which is traveling within St. Vincent, and similarly, Trinidad and Tobago would have domestic travel, which is traveling within the Twin Island Republic. But once you board a flight to go to another island, you're international. But if you don't,
I
if you don't buy into the fact that your neighboring islands are international, well, we now have direct flights to the U.S. So that I think would probably get us slowly in that direction.
Okay, wonderful. It's about time that we wrap up for this Talking Tourism program right here on DBS Radio. It has been wonderful talking to you, Mr. Johnson. I will invite you back again. Somebody's asking some questions about underwater water under the airport and other things that should be addressed. And I feel that more opportunities like this, we should have to speak to the issues and the questions.
Actually, that's an easy one. If you give me a second, I
Okay,
can address
perfect.
it right,
One
right
sec-
now.
yes.
Yeah.
3
Because
seconds.
water under airports is not a new phenomenon in Dominica. Douglas Charles actually has a river running underneath it. If you were to dig into it, but what we have done, and a lot of work that is going on right now, is putting waterways, massive culverts that water could continue to flow through. So I think we have around 4 to 5 of those to ensure that the water is able to be handled properly.
Okay, great. Final words, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody's aware that it is happening. We are making steady progress, and you can play your part. If we are able to keep our airlines that we're getting filled and working to capacity, we will get more. We'll get more from them, and we'll get more from others. So even American Airlines, we have twice daily on Saturdays. We on twice daily every day.
Great. All right, Mr. Johnson, thank you very much for being here with me on Talking Tourism. And thank you to each of you who have tuned in live via social media or on the radio for another program of Talking Tourism. Join me next week, Wednesday, right here on DBS Radio. My name is Monel Alexis. It has been a pleasure being in your company. If you're in Dominica for the first time, welcome to the nature island of the Caribbean. And while you're here, ensure that you respect yourself, respect our environment, and respect our people. And don't forget to have a fantastic time on the Nature Island. Until next week, Wednesday, take care.